Well, hey everybody, thank you for checking in once again and welcome to another episode. Well, we've got a bit of a mixed bag today. I've got various camera projects. I've had various camera projects on the go and I'd like to sort of bring them all together today and let you know how they're going. Just do a bit of a report on those. We've got the Polaroid, we've got some news on. We've got the Mew II, we've got some news on. The Rollei Flex, the Leica and the Jupiter 8 lens we've got a little bit of news on, so I'm going to talk about those. And then we're also going to have a little chat about the way the channel is going, how we take it forward, what we might want to do, the kind of things you might want to see. So I'm going to ask you to let me know in the comments a little later on. First, let me talk about cameras. Well, I've been developing films, and one of the cameras I've been developing films from is the little Mew II that I featured in last week's episode. Oh, we didn't get a flash there, that's surprising. And this is a lovely little camera, and I've been out shooting it. I've put a roll of Foma 100 through it, and I've been out shooting it and I've developed the images, and I'm very glad to say this is a beautiful little camera to use. It really is a really nice little tool to use. It's one-handed operation. If you're brave enough to put it in your pocket where it might get scratched, out from your pocket with one hand, open the cover, press the shutter. So this has been a really cool little camera to use. Things that I wasn't quite keen on about it: the viewfinder is very, very tiny, really tiny. I mean, these Leicas have a small viewfinder, these Barnack Leicas, but I'm gonna bet this one is even smaller. It's about the same, but it's a really tiny viewfinder. Actually, I think it's slightly larger, but it still is a really tiny viewfinder. It didn't cause me any real problems, but it would be nice if it was a bit bigger. But the main thing I didn't like about this camera was this flash setting, and I'll show you the button on the back here. There's a button on the back that you have to push. So this button here is the one that you push, and you have to push that 3 times. So when you switch the camera on, then you need to get to this very tiny little button, which I can only press with a fingernail, and you have to press it once and twice to turn the flash off. Or maybe it's 3 times. No, it's twice. You've got to press it twice to turn the flash off. That is a bit of a pain because it's such a tiny button that it's a real fiddle to have to do. It's not easy to find. It's difficult enough anyway to push the button twice to turn off the flash, but it would be better if it was a big button there that you could easily reach. Instead, it's this tiny little thing. So what I did was I just left the flash on, and it did fire a few times because I was using 100 ISO film. But there you go, that's the nature of the camera, and I think to avoid that, what I will do in future, because I'll shoot this camera again, is to load it with 400 ISO film to make it less likely that the flash will go off. And I would imagine that in most daylight situations that flash is not going to fire, whereas with 100 ISO sometimes it does fire, and that was a bit of a pain. But this is a fun little camera. It was never intended to be anything particularly serious. It was intended to make nice, sharp, clear, clean images of family get-togethers and holidays and things of that sort, So we can't ask too much from it. I was generally very pleased with its performance. It's a very sharp lens, even wide open, and it makes very nice background blur as well if you can force it to do so. If you can force it to shoot with the aperture wide open, which you'd have to do via a combination of the right film speed, slowish film speed, turn off the flash, make sure the flash stays off, keep the light relatively low, and you've got a chance of getting shallow depth of field with this camera. But no, I enjoyed it very much. Beautiful little camera, made some nice images. I must admit, I think I cut them a bit long in developing, so I have had to edit them a little bit, but you can see that they are very nice, very sharp images, and what an easy camera to use. Absolutely lovely. A little expensive, they are a little expensive, but you can sometimes find them cheap, you can sometimes find bargains. That's how I found this one, and it was a very nice little find, and I'll continue to use it. I will probably sell it on at some point, but I'll continue to use it for a little while. Okay, so that's the Mew II, so we'll put that one over there out of the way, and we will progress to the mighty wondrous Polaroid SX-70. And here is my Polaroid SX-70. This is the pinnacle of Polaroid production. These cameras were very, very cool. They were very, very high tech in the early 70s. They were, I think, kind of MacBook Pro levels of tech. That's how these things were perceived. They were the cutting edge. They were the absolute pinnacle, the zenith of photographic technology, instant photographic technology, that is, at around that time in the early 70s. And it continued to dominate the market for quite some time. This one was very kindly given to me by a viewer a year or so ago, or maybe a couple of years ago now. I put one roll of colour film through it, and then it packed up as I was about to shoot a roll of black and white. But I had an intuition. It was very strange. I had an intuition about this camera, and I wondered the other night, is it going to work? If I open it up, is it going to fire up again? And I just had an inkling that it might. And my goodness, when I opened it and fired it up, it did work again, and it managed to spit out some images. They're not fantastic images because I think that the film is very old, but here we are. These are what we've got. We've got very dim, foggy images, but they are images, and the camera is working. It's firing, the shutter's working, and it's spitting out film. Now, I've had this film lying around for a couple of years, and I don't think it was new when I bought it. I can't remember the date stamp on the box, but it's been lying around wrapped in foil because it didn't work when I put it in the camera. So I think what we've got here is just old film. By some miracle, this camera works again. So let's just fire a shot and just prove that it really does work again. I hope it does after saying all this. So where's the focus wheel? There we are. It's a really easy camera to use. It's an SLR, and it's got, this one has the split image, the little split image prism to make it easier to focus. So there we are. Let's have a shot of the spare room. And oh, it spat out an image, so we'll put that in the dark. Let's put that immediately in the dark in my pocket where it will sit. They have to sit in the dark for some time, these Polaroid images. I believe it's not quite the same as the original Polaroid film. In the old days, it would spit out an image and develop whatever the lighting conditions. You could develop one of these outside in, you know, Arizona sunshine, really, really, really bright, direct sunshine. But you can't do that with this modern film. It just won't work that way. It's a slightly different formulation. But it is nice film and it works nice, and I'm going to get some more of it. I'm going to get some fresh film, put some film through this. So I'm really glad it's working again. I'll show you the camera up close. There's the Polaroid SX-70. Look at that beautiful thing. Is it not magnificent? This was the absolute zenith of technology in the early 70s, at least photographic technology anyway. There's the viewfinder. It's not particularly easy viewfinder to see through, but it does work nicely, and it does have that split prism in there once you get your eye to the right position. It's a very unusual looking thing, and even now the technology to do this is just astonishing. I find it astonishing. Let's see if we can get anything resembling an image out of this camera. Let's just see if we can focus it. Yeah, we can. It does focus really closely, actually. Let's just get a shot of this. Keep my thumb out of the way. Oh, we're not going to get a shot. That was my last shot, but no problem. So the film is now used up. So that is an incentive for me to get some more Polaroid film. So I'll be doing that very shortly. So there we are. You can go away. That's fine. Okay, the Rollei Flex. The Rollei Flex is doing fine after its recent encounter with the pavement. Its recent very unfortunate encounter with the pavement. I was absolutely horrified when it happened, but thankfully, unfortunately, it is now restored to working condition by one of the factory trained people. An actual factory trained man worked on this Rollei Flex and fixed it up for me. I'm having trouble getting the lens cap to fit on there. There we go. So I'm glad to say the Rollei Flex is now in excellent order after its unfortunate encounter with gravity and the pavement. It's all nice. And I've been shooting this camera. I've got about 4 or 5 rolls of film to develop. The problem with developing, I find, is scanning. It's really difficult to scan images well, especially on 120 film. I've used various Heath Robinson devices and methods, and some of them are quite good, but the massive enemy with film scanning, and it is a massive enemy with film scanning, is dust. I just don't know how to get rid of the dust with any of these systems and methods that I have come up with. So I think probably the best thing to do with certainly with the Rollei Flex images is just to either get myself a dedicated film scanner, which are quite expensive. I think the one from Plus Tech is fairly expensive, or just send them off to be developed and you know, hang the cost and just accept that's what it costs. It's no more expensive than Polaroids, and possibly still a little less expensive than Polaroids. So I think that's maybe what I'll do with the Rollei Flex. 35mm developing, on the other hand, is possible. Scanning is not easy, so it would be nice to get a dedicated film scanner. I've got a roll out of the Leica that I need to develop, this little Barnack Leica. This is doing really well, by the way. I'm loving the little light meter that I have on the top here. This is one by Astra Hori, but there are lots and lots of versions of this little thing from various manufacturers. Let's just have a brief look over here. So here's the camera and here's the little light meter on top of it, and it's a really cool little thing. All you have to do is push a little button on the back there and it pings into life. It seems to be the scan of the camera seems to be affecting the readout here. It's dancing about all over the place on this little screen. But yeah, it's turned what was quite a slow camera into a far quicker camera to use, because it now has essentially a built-in light meter, and it just makes things so much flipping easier. It's just unbelievable. You know, it's so much easier than carrying a light meter in your hand, looking at the values, putting it back in your pocket, putting the values into the camera, getting the light meter out again if the light changes. What a rigmarole, what a performance. This makes it vastly easier. It works really well also on, well, I mean, it works great on any camera without a meter, but I've been using it on this Zorky 4 also, and it works great on this camera. And just like the Leica, it turns a relatively slow camera into a much quicker one, and one that's much easier to use. And that's a really nice thing. I have been recently, talking about the Zorky, it's got this Jupiter 8 lens on it. I've been using this very lens recently on my Fujifilm X-T3. I've come back to the old Jupiter 8, and I wasn't sure what to shoot the other day. I wanted to take my camera out, my X-T3 out, to you know, just do a little photography. I had a choice either of a modern lens, the one that's shooting now, or this nice old Jupiter. And I thought, I mean, I had a choice of all the lenses I've got, but of all the lenses I've got, I chose the Jupiter because I thought, well, let's take it back to basics. Let's use a really simple, old school lens. This is an old school lens. It's essentially a 1930s lens. It's coated, but it's essentially a 30s lens. Let's just take it back to basics and see what we can do. And I had an absolutely lovely time shooting this lens. I love this little Jupiter 8. I never get tired of this lens. It's great on former Soviet rangefinders. It's great on the German Leica rangefinders. It's great on digital cameras, mirrorless cameras as well. I just love it. It's a lovely old lens, and it really encapsulates what I was trying to do when I first began this channel. And when I first began, I was fascinated, and still am, but was fascinated at that time by the notion of using these old lenses that nobody wanted at that time on new mirrorless cameras. That was a marriage of the old and the new that, to me, that was really appealing to me, and I really wanted to look into that. So that was why I began this channel, just to look at the vast range of old lenses that's available. And when I evaluate a lens, I don't ever really pixel peep. I don't ever really do particularly technical assessments. These are subjective assessments, and that was the whole idea of the channel. Do a subjective assessment of the equipment. How does it feel like to use? What kind of images does it make? Do you like the images? Not necessarily does it have a little bit of barrel distortion or field curvature or any of that technical stuff. I was never terribly interested in that stuff unless it really impacts a lens. So the whole concept was really a subjective one, to look at these things subjectively. So that was the idea, and I'm thinking now of ways to take this channel forward. Do we want to? This is the bit where you get to tell me what you want to see, because I really would like to know what you want to see. Views are declining a little bit, and I would like to address that. I would like to increase them. It does take a lot of work to make one of these episodes, and you know, even if they do really well, they make only a very small amount of money, and if they don't do well, then they're making just tiny amounts. And if they don't do well for 3 or 4 weeks on the go, then it's, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, tiny amounts. So I'd like to bring those views up. So tell me what you want to see. I'm thinking of, I'll tell you what I'm thinking of going forward. Going forward. I used to hate that phrase. Now I keep using it. It's got into my head. There we go. So moving forward, possibly I've got an idea for the great cameras, the history of the great cameras, like this Barnett Leica, how they came to be built, how they came to be conceived of, how they came to the market, the people who worked on them, who created them. That's something I'd like to look at, a series on the great cameras like the OM series, the Nikon cameras, the great cameras of times past, with quite a bit of information, carefully researched and so forth. I wondered if that might be a popular way ahead. I've never looked too much at Nikon or Nikkor lenses, so I want to have a look at some of the Nikkors and some of the other Nikon lenses that are available. There's a whole untapped field there of lenses. If you'd like to see some Nikkor lenses or just some other old vintage lenses, if that's what this channel's about for you, then please let me know. And you know, if enough people want me to do it, then I'll do it. Doesn't matter what it is, I'll do it if you want me to do it. So where do we take the channel going forward? How do we please both you and me? So that's a thing that I would like you, please give me a comment. Let me know what you think, what you want, where you'd like this channel to go. That would be appreciated. Oh, I almost forgot. Coming up next week, we have This is the camera that I bought in a charity shop that I mentioned last week. It's an Olympus camera. I didn't reveal what it was last week, but I'm going to tell you what it is now. This is coming up next week, a review on this little camera, and it is the XA2. It's the Olympus XA2. This camera I found for £5 in a charity shop, and it was in their £5 bargain bin, so I snapped this one up as quickly as I could. It's a beautiful little thing. It's very, very tiny. It fits on the palm of my hand. Is it any bigger than the Mew II? Let's see. The Mew II is actually bigger. It's a tiny bit wider. The XA2, however, is a little bit taller, so broadly around the same size. There's no doubting that this is a very, very tiny camera. It has a clamshell design. Let me show you over here a little more closely. So here's the little XA2, and it's got this slider on the front, on the top rather, and slide that aside, and there we see the camera. I don't have a battery in it yet, so it won't fire, but it is ready to shoot. The battery compartment is underneath. It takes an LR44, or probably an SR44 would be better, the silver oxide version. That goes in here. The battery compartment's nice and clean, so we've no problems there. We've got a lovely little lens on here. It's a 3.5 35mm, whereas the Mew II is a 2.8 35mm, and it's a zone focusing camera also. So I'm going to go out and shoot that camera this week, and I'll bring you a review on it next week. I'm very much looking forward to shooting this little camera. It's a beautiful little thing. I've heard a lot about it, but I've never used one. I've never used any of the XA cameras, so this one should be quite interesting to shoot. So that's coming next week. So I just thought I'd mention that. That's part of what's coming up. But do let me know if you'd like to see something else, whatever else you'd like to see. Okay. So I guess that's it from me for this week. Many, many thanks for tuning in and watching. I do appreciate that. If you like this channel and you like the content that I'm putting out, then you might want to chuck us a sub. That would be very much appreciated. Many, many thanks to existing subscribers, to anybody who's subscribed and regularly watches the channel. Thank you for your subscription. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate also the support of patrons. Many, many thanks to you for your support. That is really appreciated, and this channel could not be made the way it is without that support. So many, many thanks for that. If you think that this channel is one that you like and that you might want to support yourself, you can do that over at www.patreon.com/Zenography, and you can do that for as little as $1 per month. As for me, that's it for now. So if you're not doing anything too difficult, awkward or annoying, next week at around this time, please do tune in for a spot more Zenography. Cheerio all.